So as I was looking at all of these different topics that we try to address very quickly in a short period of time, but what ties all of these things together is looking at resistance against oppression. How do we resist? And what are ways that we've resisted that worked, and what are ways that didn't? And sometimes, how long do you have to resist before you see something? Because it seems like we might resist for a second, and because we didn't immediately get the results, we just fold, we fall back, we can't sustain the fight. And so just really looking at whether it's in the Congo, what groups stayed on and kept fighting, who kept Lumumba's legacy alive. Adesoji, I don't know if you would take a moment now to talk about the sister behind the scenes with Lumumba.
Andre Bolin, yes. She has a very peculiar history. Again, going back to the Belgians. The Belgians had this system. You guys are well aware of that kind of system in the United States. The one blood rule, where if you had miscegenation, you're not allowed to keep the kids. So the kids are taken away from you. They're flown either out of Congo, or in some cases, they're taken to other parts of Congo, but very far away. All records are burnt. So literally the person is X.
Wait a second. So just break this down. So you're saying when the white Belgians would rape the black Congo, and then they will have children, then those children will be taken from their mothers?
Yes.
And that Rodney Duckett, doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Have you heard that story somewhere else?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, yeah. So they take them, and they take them where?
What they would do is either based on the kind of person, based on the status of the person who was involved with the Congolese.
You mean based on the status of the rapist? Is that what you're trying to say?
Based on the status of the violator, right?
Okay.
The child will either be taken. Will be taken to Congo, taken to Belgium, and put in what do they call them? Orphanage in Belgium, Catholic orphanage. Yeah. But if it's someone lower status, maybe somebody who just walked into Congo, had violated some local girl, you will take the child and flip them to the other side of Congo. Bearing in mind, Congo is 80 times the size of Belgium. So if you look at Belgium on the map, you're talking actually about a continent on its own. So literally toss them around. So this woman, Andre Bolin, is an example of that kind of system. And so when she came up, she reached out to the likes, her story is way too interesting. She reached out to the likes of Nkrumah. Nkrumah put her in touch with Lumumba. And then she became Lumumba's speechwriter and protocol. Now, if Lumumba wanted to get anything out in terms of information, talk about the power of a woman. There was, that movie you're about to watch, Soundtrack of a Coup d'etat. She's in there. One of the stuff she did was take a they say oftentimes and not, the best way to shock your enemy is to inform the world of their plans. So she knew, what's his name? This is the beauty of the first group of African leaders. They use intelligence for their people. You know the kind of intelligence the CIA gathers. The likes of Nkrumah, Modibo Keita in Mali. So Nkrumah was in Ghana. Modibo Keita was in Mali. Ture was in Guinea. Silvio Olympio was in Togo. Why were they important? The guy in Togo, Silvio Olympio, spoke both English and French. So the kind of wires that they would get, he would transfer them to Nkrumah. Nkrumah will then transmit them to Lumumba. So Lumumba sort of knew what was coming. And so it would not be okay for Nkrumah to release the story because you're talking about another country. So give it to the guy. The guy then gave it to the woman. The woman took it to Paris.
And how she took it to Paris. So you guys have to stay tuned because there's going to be a whole other series on YouTube called Women and Resistance, and we'll dive more into this. But she hid it, this document, she hid it in her bun, in the bun of her hair.
Wow.
And got on this plane and proceeded, which might explain why every time I go through TSA, which I just did, they are always messing with my hair. Like, oh, we gotta you pull aside, and I'm like, what? At the most, it's hairpins, but that might explain their fascination with our hair.
Yeah, so that again, we're talking about the roles of women behind the scene, which is often overlooked. Again, when we look at our sanitized history, you don't often hear the mention of women. It's only when other women decide, you know what, we're invisible, what's going on here? And then they start writing. You see the roles in that movie. You see the roles of women. Even Maria Makeba, that was at one point married to Stokely CarMichael, who the world will know as Kwame Ture.
Who talks about, I watched her documentary recently, and she talked about the connection amongst those first set of African leaders and the support that she had. But by the time, as time passed and so many of them were killed or died or whatever, she's like, you didn't have that same kind of connection. She didn't have the same kind of protection that she used to be able to enjoy from African leaders. It was really interesting.
Yeah, and it's painful as well. It's painful to bear because another beautiful thing about that time was those leaders wrote down their thoughts and what was happening. Nkrumah was foremost in doing that. He wrote at least 14 books on each aspect of the African experience. Even in Congo, he wrote about the challenge of Congo, and
now America is inaugurating folk who talk at a 4th grade level, and I need to watch it. They take this channel down.
No, I mean, it's indicative of also, it's an indictment on also ourselves, because like you said earlier, that we might end up being the generation that inherited so much rights, but yet bequeathing so less of it to the next generation. Why? We don't read. We don't read. We can talk for years, but those talk have to be based on not reinventing the wheel. These guys have already done the work.
Yes, they have.
Let's study the work they did and refine it for this present time. What's the word? We don't even have to do much. And the reason why I say we don't have to do much is this is all King's words.
Mm-hmm.
All his words, his speeches, his books, his talks, his interviews, they're all in here. So you don't need to go anywhere else. You just open to whatever it is you want to read.
So let's give some calls to action then on this Martin Luther King Day, or the day we're celebrating Martin Luther King. What will be some assignments, if you will, that you will give to the people listening or watching? Like, what can they do so that by this time next year, when we're celebrating him again, they have maybe a deeper understanding of what it is King was about in the work that we must do? Because legacy is really not just about calling his name. It's about continuing that work, right?
Yes, I would ask them to put at least 3 books in conversation with each other. It would be, what's it called? The Dead Are Rising. Malcolm X's.
Malcolm X's, yes. I think
Yeah,
I have that one
the
here.
Dead Are Rising.
Yeah.
A Testament of Hope. Yeah, you see where I'm going with this. A Testament of Hope. What's Kwame Ture's book?
What, the neocolonialism one?
The Pan-Africanism and what's it called? Let me see if I can pull it. Yes. From Black Power to Pan-Africanism. This one?
Good one. Good one.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So the reason I say that is
books over here.
Yeah, the reason I say that is so Testament of Hope will give us an understanding of the organization of the, of all the various movements, the Montgomery bus boycott, the organization of the what's it called? The March on Washington. So you have those 2 pivotal events. And then if you read Malcolm X, you will see it from another point of view. So here is not somebody, quote unquote, the establishment, but he's from a grassroots. So he takes another message, so which is you can speak, but Malcolm X is saying you need to fight in order to speak. Stokely is saying, yes.
But Malcolm X is also saying you better read.
Yeah.
You
So
understand.
Stokely underscores that point. Stokely says, if you don't know what you're talking about, take a sit.
Yeah.
I mean, there is this quote I highlighted. Where is it? Yeah. Why should I stay here to get up on television and yell a lot of nonsense? I would only cause confusion in my community. I don't want to do that. Confusion is the greatest enemy of revolution.
Yes. Oh, wait a second. Say that quote again.
It says, okay, so the premise for it was he was talking to Black College at Morehouse, right?
Who are you reading?
I'm reading
Stokely CarMichael. Yes, sir.
So he says, true revolutionaries must not bomb rush the mic, but take valuable time to study. He explains, because revolutionary theories are based on historical analysis. One must study, one must understand one's history, and one must make the correct historical analysis. At the correct point, you make your historical leap and carry the struggle forward. Not only that, you cannot rap if you really don't believe what you're saying, or if you don't know the answers. 14 months ago, it became clear to me that the Black community was heading for political chaos. I hope we're not there. I knew that I didn't have the answer. So it was silly for me to stay here and keep rapping about what I didn't know. Why should I stay here to get up on television, yell a whole lot of nonsense? If it will only cause confusion in my community, I didn't even want to do that. Confusion is the greatest enemy of revolution.
There you have it.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, and I'm a history buff, and my people here in America, they don't like to read, and I think I has pushed this envelope as hard as anybody that I've known to bring people together to read. So I challenge people to do this. There's so much literature out on YouTube. So much literature. And if I was to go with any talk show host, I would go with Lester Middleton or Tony Brown. They had those great scholars that were there. The scholars that you're talking to, they done wonderful interviews, and they're within an hour. And then within that, choose one book to start off with. One book. I always tell people one book.
Just
and,
one.
and just have the family read it. Make it a part of the table conversation after dinner, breakfast, whatever the case may be. Engage it. Take 30 minutes a night and read. Just give your child a book and read out loud, or you read out loud to your child, and have them to start thinking about what it's saying and try to relate it to today's time. Sometimes it might be something as trivial as, well, this white teacher doesn't like me because he doesn't like my friend. And then you can establish a pattern based off of what you're reading about in the book, why their table conversation is different than our table conversation. So that's the one thing that I've always said. There is a couple of civil rights books that's out there that I recommend. Mark Whitaker, if you guys are not familiar with him, he wrote a book, Say It Out Loud. He talks about the behind the scenes of the civil rights movement and how those women was the combustion that made it move. He talked a lot about Stokely CarMichael in the book, him and John Lewis's battle, and how John Lewis was hurt after Stokely CarMichael took over SNCC, and then how SNCC turned against Stokely CarMichael and he left for the Black Panther Party. So you get to see that inner working combustion. So that's a good one. There's a white author, I'm trying to remember his name, but he had The Plot to Kill King. And this book is amazing, because the one thing that I never understood about King's death, he was never covered. How can you have the leader of the civil rights movement not covered? You know,
Is that the one by William Pepper?
Yes, William Pepper. Yeah.
Okay.
So why don't you have him covered? And it's the biggest thing. If the Nation of Islam has Elijah Muhammad covered, why wouldn't you have King covered? All the death threats that he's had, or whatever the case may be, why wouldn't you have him? Why would you have him in such a predicament where he's at a hotel on a ledge and you're just pointing up, and no one shows an action period of, I hear it now, I'm jumping in front of the bullet. Take this one for him. No, it's like, what are we doing?
But he was covered, because the FBI knew everything he drank, what he ate, when he pooped, when he slept. He was covered. He was just not covered to keep him alive.
Exactly. And I think there should have been more thought to go into that. I will also look into his speech writers. There was a lot of speech writers. Bernard Rustin was one of them. I know he's a controversial individual, but him and Malcolm X had a lot of great debates. So you can look at some of those debates, the King debates, the Malcolm X debates, and all of that, and make that a part of the topic. With my children, what I've always done is I'll take one thing from YouTube and I'll talk about it. You know, it could be Tony Brown, and they might be a little bit bored from it, but then there's something that perks them up, and then we have that conversation. So.
So lots of books that we can recommend here. I would say my biggest call to action is getting community. Yeah. We can't sit in our homes and hope and pray somebody else does the work. And if more people are working, then it's less burden on any one person. If each of us takes one more young person under our wings and says, hey, this is the one, I'm going to check up on them, I'm going to go to their activities, I'm going to buy them a book. We have enough adults to cover all the young people, regardless of what may be happening in their homes. It's putting money into organizations that are actually making a difference. Today in our community, there's going to be a step show, and I know it's going to be jam-packed.
Most definitely.
And we tend to encourage certain things, but not others. And hey, I'm all for having a good time with the step show and all of that, but it's the balance. And I feel like in our community, and I'm talking about the Black community, we have allowed ourselves to be defined in a certain way. Even in that soundtrack to a coup d'etat, I was watching the part with Dizzy Gillespie. Honestly, it broke my heart, because I actually used to see him in a very different light. And he's like, we're cool, like we fight the war of cool, it's not the Cold War, it's the cool war. And it's this idea of all Black people bring to the table is run a ball or sing and dance.
The level of almost infantile level of discussion. When that guy called him out, the way
So
Come on.
I just feel like we need to be doing more to not just talk at our young people, but to model for them. And when they don't see us reading, when they don't see us paying attention to what's happening and being able to have conversations, understanding about even politics during this last political election, the amount of sheer ignorance, and at this point I've got to say willful ignorance on some of the parts of even the people who are supposed to be in leadership was just amazing. And then the ego. So I'll say get involved in community. Everybody doesn't have to like you. You don't have to like everybody. Shoot, you don't like everybody in your family, but we need to come together. Definitely reading. I would say definitely watch where you spend your money. Dr. Duckett, you and I both have a mentor who always says,
to whom you give your money, to whom you power.
To whom you give your money is to whom you give your power. And so I'm really like very conscious right now. Where am I spending my money? And it might mean I drive a little further, and it might mean it costs me a little bit more, but that's where I want to make that investment, is with people that I hopefully will invest back into us as well. I'm going to just lift up a few books. John Henry Clark, African World Revolution. It's so interesting. I've got all kinds of letters and notes in this from my time with him. Because I got to sit at the feet of this great leader. And there's an organization having a conference next weekend. So I think the 24th through the 26th or something like that. But in Columbus, Georgia, ASCAC, the Association for the Advancement of African
Civilization.
African Civilizations. Okay, got it. But if you go onto Eventbrite, and if we do post this part, I'll see if I have the link, and we'll include the link for people to go, because they're to attend, because they're also going to go to John Henry Clark's graveside in Columbus, Georgia, which is where he's from. But this is from John Henry Clark, and just one area that just jumped out that I had highlighted. More so than any other Afro-American leader, Malcolm X realized that there must be a concomitant cultural and educational revolution if the physical revolution is to be successful. No revolution has ever sustained itself on emotion. There must be a cultural and educational revolution. So wherever you are, if you can get a few people together to read, let's do it. St. Clair Drake, and this is Black Folk Here and There. This is one that I would actually love to read in community. I love to read on my own, but it's something special when you can read and discuss a book with other curious minds. It's like it opens up a whole new world. And then, since we're talking women, The Rebellious Life of Mrs. Rosa Parks. And this is a young reader's edition. So this is one that, seriously, if you can sit down and binge watch, whatever of Netflix, something. No, seriously, like people spend 5-6 hours and binge watch something. You could read this book in that period of time. It's it got pictures, the not too many words, in my opinion, anyway. Big writing. You could really pick up this book, The Rebellious Life of Mrs. Rosa Parks, and get a better understanding of what did these people do? How did they think to push the needle? Rosa Parks went to, what is the Highlander School, which was a whole program that they had started where people who were interested in doing some of this liberation work would go and learn. Septima Clark was part of that as well. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we do need to take some time to understand what was done before and to figure out how to continue and build on that. And I think that that's where we've kind of missed the mark.
Also, I would like to add W.E.B. Du Bois's The World in Africa.
Yes.
Can't go wrong with the man's use of language.
Okay, final point, and we're going to sign
$300 worth of books right now. I bought $300. I done bought the brother's book. I'm ordering things right now. Laura have mercy. I done ordered some stuff from Sankofa. So I'm trying to support my Black bookstores. So
listen. I was just in Indianapolis. I went straight from the airport. Yes, straight from the airport to Ujamaa Community Bookstore. Let me tell you though, Brother Duckett, we need to have a conversation with those people, what they're doing there.
Yes.
Of course, it's right off of Martin Luther King Boulevard because they always named the Black areas that they starved of resources, Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
But anyway, these people, so they're part of Flanner's house. The Flanners were morticians. And when W.E.B. Du Bois was coming into Indianapolis to speak, none of the white establishments would let him sleep there. And so the Flanners fixed up their home so that they could be the ones who took in W.E.B., not W.E.B. Du Bois, I just said Booker T. Washington.
Booker T. Washington.
And so morticians have always been very important in the Black community. Because definitely. the white mortuaries weren't going to touch our bodies. Now they do because they want the money. But back then, and people are going to die, so the morticians were pretty much up there with the ministers. But that's where the name Flanners came from. Is the Flanners started opening up their home to take in any of our Black dignitaries that came into the Indianapolis area. But what these people have done with Flanner's house, still in the deep of the Black community in Indianapolis, they have a daycare center that has achieved the highest rating a daycare center can get by the whatever bodies govern this stuff. So the level of excellence there. They have the bookstore, which you saw me in, Ujamaa Bookstore. They have a part where they are teaching skills to young adults, trying to keep them off the streets, give them alternatives, give them skill sets to be able to go out and be productive citizens. They have a farm because it's a food desert there. So they have a farm where they're teaching people how to grow things, but they're also growing food that the community can then consume. They have a restaurant. And I've got to share, I'm going to post pictures. I hope I took pictures of it because it was so cold. I want to take my hands out of my pocket. It was 6 degrees when I arrived in Indianapolis. But they have this building with the restaurant, and they've got all these pictures of, Black people who had done things in that community. And during COVID, and they have buses, and during COVID, they were actually collecting food and going and delivering food to the homes of the shut-in, to our elders, things like that. And they now have a project. They're actually starting a capital campaign. They have a project where they're helping people improve their credit scores and go through the home buying process. But they actually help people buy the homes for less than what they're worth. Sorry, not less than what they're worth. So they pay less than what the building is actually worth. So they're covering the difference to get these people in the homes and then to assist them to make sure that they can maintain the homes so that these homes are not just up for grabs by gentrifiers. And I was just thinking about what they're doing there and saying, we need the same kind of thing on the north side of Killeen. But the Flanner's house. But so I've talked with you and I connected with the CEO and I said, we got to have you on this show where I was with Rethinking Freedom, the specific things that you're doing. So we're not just sitting around waiting for the government to do right by us. We have to take charge of what it is we want to do. And so in their bookstore, they've actually partnered with different entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs who sell their jewelry there, sell their candles, people who are creating their
entrepreneurs.
own entrepreneurs. So you might not get into Target or Walmart or whatever, but hey, this is where your can be sold and people can know this is where they come and they get it. So there's some really great things happening out there. I just want to see us do better.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm open to meet with them or even flying up there myself because you made me want to go up there. I was like, wow. So that is unique. Yeah, and there's Black bookstores in this area, Shrine of Black Madonna in Houston, Pan African Connection in Dallas, and Doc Bookshop as well too. But that one right there just really stood out to me. So and it's been around for a minute. So
it was so funny that, when I finally met with, and Brittany, don't use this part. I don't put people on blast like that. When I finally met with the Corteva people, And this is an agri-science organization, broke off from Dow Chemical. So this is huge. They're global.
Mm-hmm.
And they've really done a good job, I would say, of attracting some very bright Black people, PhDs in chemical engineering and agricultural engineering and this and that. I was talking to one person, she got a PhD and 2 masters, all of them in science fields and so on and so forth.
So not the higher.
Well, they will still call them a DEI, but when I'm talking to these Black folk in the who are, no doubt making decent 6 figures, and I'm telling them about this place, they're like, "Where? What are you talking about? You mean here in Indianapolis?" Yeah, it's 19 minutes from your location. Martin Luther King and 24th Street. I said, and you guys are, agricultural-based organization. They're trying to address the food desert issues and so on. Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I guess we should check out that.
Oh,
I
God.
think it kind of sounds familiar. I think, because we volunteer and
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
so this whole idea that you are a Black person, as a Black woman, anytime I go into any community, my first instinct is to go find where my people are.
Exactly.
In fact, Danville, because I went to visit there, we had moved there in 2002. But when they recruited my husband, they flew us both in. And the person who picked us up was white. And everywhere that they took us, we only met with white people that entire day and a half. On the second day, while we were at the university, the community college, there was a man who was on their board of trustees, Dr. Fields, who was Black. And I wasn't part of that meeting per se, but I, because they were recruiting my husband, but, I'm like, it's my family. I'm going to pay attention. And I see him coming out the building. I stopped him and I greeted him and I told him, yes, we're here for, I said, do Black people live in Danville? He said, oh yeah, there are lots of them. I said, sir, if you don't mind, because I don't care what money they throw at my husband, if you don't mind, can I get the names and phone numbers of like 5 Black people who live here that I can talk to? Because I have a son and we are not coming somewhere where we're not going to be comfortable. So he was like, he's off to a meeting, but he quickly scribbled down some names for me. And then we left. And when I got back to Michigan where we were, I started calling these names. And the first name that I called was Leslie Ann Cunningham. And she said, now this part you can put, Brittany. So the first person I called was Leslie Ann Cunningham. And I remember where I was in my office. I introduced myself. Of course, she didn't know who I was. And I said, we are being recruited to come to the community, but I didn't see any Black people. And I need to understand what is going on with Black people in that community before I decide that that's where I want to relocate. So she said, well, when next are you going to be around? We talked and I told her. And the next time they brought us back into town, I went and knocked on her door. She let me in. We had this long conversation. Her husband ended up telling me about, who's a veteran vet, telling me about his barbecue sauce recipe, but he wasn't going to tell me the recipe. I could only taste the thing. We left there. We went to her mother's house, Mama Rhett. That woman opened her arms and opened her heart to me like she had known me forever. Long story short, I found the Black community, and it was that Black community that sustained us. They're the ones who loved on my children. Our adoptive grandparents, Mr. Willie and Juanita Mosby, who would watch my children anytime that I had to travel. When I say watch my children, as in they lived in a 1-bedroom house, and their whole front room was nothing but toys that they had bought for my kids. And they would take them places and tell them stories and sing to them. And Mrs. Mosby would show them how to make food. Little kids, the way they loved on my children. That's what happens when you go and find your peoples. So all of you well-educated, well-resourced Black folk, We need you to
Mhm.
reconnect to the real community.
And rethink their
Yes,
freedom as well.
Rethink
most
that
definitely.
freedom. One of the things desegregation did for us is it separated us.
Mm.
Now the janitor lives over on this side of town and the doctor lives over on the other side of town, and the children don't have an understanding and appreciation for all the roles that people play. So when I was at this place, I was speaking and I noticed in the room there was not one quote unquote lower level staff person who was in the room hearing me speak. But when we
Mhm.
got out and they were taking me to lunch, I'm seeing all these janitors who look like me. I'm trying to stop to talk to them like, oh no, we gotta go, we gotta go. And I'm like,
Yeah,
we have to do that.
They've been out cultured. They've been out culturized. We
yeah,
gotta go.
yeah.
We
The
gotta go.
corporation, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a corporation, yeah. And
Mm.
that's the thing that I never truly understood about the community. Like I've been doing what I've been doing since 1997 in the community, and it started longer with my own mother having us in the community. And you know, I don't ask for donations or money to beg. I ask because literally kids can't afford what I want to do with them, and
Mm.
I have my own kids too. And you know, sometimes I look and I say, okay, I got 8 boys and I got my own kids. So, well, come on in and we'll just split the money and make it happen. But then I started realizing I have a community out there. And in the area that I live in, the average income in the home is somewhere around about 120K in this area because you have retired military disability, the VA pays well, the DOD pays well. So there's some money moving in this area. You go to a black event, you'll see a Mercedes, you'll see $1,000 iPhone and some Prada shoes and all that different stuff that they wear. So when I say, hey, can you make a $250 donation, you would think that I'll probably spit in most people's face. And I'm like, I'm not getting rich off of it. I got a job that pays well, but I have a young boy that his mother's a single mother and she's barely keeping the lights on. And even
Mm.
though she's throwing, $25 at me a pay period, that's still not enough to get a kid to DC or to get a kid to Houston or take a kid to Tulsa. I mean, I need your assistance. And people say, I don't know what I'm throwing my money at, like I'm giving you money, but how's that kid's grades or how's that kid's behavior? Well, the mere fact that the kids with me, we're adjusting the grades, we're adjusting the behavior. He just needs to know that he's loved by his community. That's it. Loved by his community. Listen, and I no fun intended, and sometimes this is what I get myself in trouble for. You'll go throw some tidings at a church for about $400 or $500 for a blessing, but you won't bless a kid with an opportunity. And that's the thing that bothers me the most. I provide a seed of opportunity. I just need a little cultivation from you. I need a little bit of nourishment from you. And the money that you give me, if it's $100 or $250, doesn't go to Rodney Duckett, doesn't go to Rodney Duckett at all. That money goes to other people. Now, there's people in the community that give. Aya Nelly gives, Lavina Sabri gives, Babatunde gives. I've had people to come to me and write checks and don't want anything in return. I've had people that make like anonymous donations to me. And those are the people that I really appreciate it because they really believe in what we're trying to do here in the community to work with the kids. Because I'm not the couch potato person that's going to tell a quarterback how to throw a ball or running back how to run or someone to slam dunk. I'm out there in the community. I'm working with the kids. I'm working with other community people. But sometimes you got to take the kids out of the community. And what my kids learned in DC when they met, well, they didn't meet, but we were next to the Proud Boys, and they got to see all those little red hats of the kids from the high schools and the private schools that were coming to DC proud because their president got elected. They got a cultural shift. They seen a cultural shift meeting Dr. Carr. They got a cultural shift walking Howard University. They got a cultural shift going to Sankofa bookstore. So those are the things that we embed in them, and they became new young men when they came back from this experience. This was a maturation process. I said, I can't treat you like the Hema or the Maasai tribe in Africa and have you go out and kill a lion, but what I can do is take you to DC so you can see just how people are living and people are structuring in DC. So
and I would say for people who, because unfortunately I'm also begging a lot. By the way, but you know what? I've told God as well, although one person can't do it alone, this has to be the year where I do increase my own personal resources, where I don't have to beg so much. Like if you see the vision and you want to come along, come along. But so we have the project we have the library in Opobo, first public library. We have a school educating 200 plus kids where we fully cover all the salaries, where we the school is not getting the money from any other source. Like, we're it. And
Nelly.
so it's January 20th. In about 3 days, I got to figure out how I'm sending the money to pay salaries to the schools. So every month it comes faster than I expected to. And then here in the community, we have IT girls, intelligent and talented girls, and some of the things that we're wanting to do. And I tell people, you know what? Don't just give the money. Like, come and see. Come and see for yourself. As a matter of fact, why don't you just come and you can adopt, if you will, 2 of the girls and cover just their expenses. So you don't even have to
give the money to you.
Yes, and see what it is we do and the difference it makes. Because if we keep talking about, what our youth are and aren't, but forgetting that they are products of our environment, and we created this environment. And Dr. Duckett, we were nurtured by somebody.
Oh, definitely.
I would not. I can give you a long list of men, and particularly women, who sometimes had to drag me by my ear, but they took me under their wing, and they were like, "We see something in you, and we gonna help shape you." And I am who I am today because of the people who poured into me, and that is true for every one of us. So how do you now get to whatever pinnacle you've gotten to and feel like you can't give back to others? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Our culturalization.
Yes.
There's an old African saying that you better show the kid love now, otherwise they will burn down the village to feel the warmth. And that comes in so many forms, because the kid you don't want to pay for right now will end up, putting your kid in the street.
Yes.
It might be inadvertently, it might just be a stray, but then still, So I don't. Who was it? Muhammad Ali, said charity is best when you don't expect anything in return.
Yes. That is so powerful. Principles to manhood, or pillars to manhood, is something that I talk about. And I've used this table talk discussion. I used it as a keynote before to address universities. And this is it. There's 3 ways that I was raised by, man. Number 1, I was given a trade. I was taught a trade when I was a kid, Then and within that trade gave me discipline and structure. Then number 2, I was given my history. I was taught our story. I was given that culture, and that culture gave a sense of pride in who I am. And then number 3, which was wealth. And wealth was not always just profitable. Wealth was also health, also emotional, mind, body, and spirit type thing. And that's what grew me. Those are the hands that molded me into the man that I am. Now, let me talk to you about my kids that I deal with. Okay. My kids that I deal with are given the trade. The trade is by that Snoop Dogg OG in the middle of the street. He teaches them a trade. He teaches them how to sell drugs. He teaches them how to commit criminal activity. Number 2, he gives them a history of what a blood is, what a Crip is, what a street dude is, to have that false bravado that they'll carry out. And then number 3, he gives them wealth. He gives them something that's profitable, something that's tangible. So these are the things that he does to attract a young boy to him, to call him an OG, which is another word for a father or uncle. And then they will take a rap for him. They will do a bid for him easily based off of him just giving them time and attention to teach him certain things that his father was absent from. So this is where I stake my claim. So when you invest in what I'm doing, or you invest in what I is doing, what you're doing is you're investing in the trade. You're investing in the history and the culture, and you're also investing in the wealth of the boys or the girls or the community at that time. And a lot of people don't want to see that. What they want to see is what Pookie and Ray Ray done on KCN TV, shooting and robbing and stealing and saying, it's all the parents' fault. It's all his fault. It's the world's fault. It's not my fault. I'm disconnected from that. They need to go listen to Mimi Till. Mimi Till said the same thing too. Mimi Till said, I used to think that what was happening in the South had nothing to do with me until it had something to do with me. So again, we're so connected to everything that's there. And your money, your time is so valuable to us right now in the community. And if you do not think rich white men are not investing in things that deal with their kids, my boys can tell you what happened in DC, what we seen in DC. Those little red mega hats, those schools that private schools that was there, those all boys schools that was there, that was promoting, those Proud Boys that came out, those country boys that were there, they were all there in DC. Okay. And I'm pretty sure some of those kids couldn't afford that trip to DC. So we seen it there with all
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are investing. That's for sure. I know ECAM gets all kinds of invitations to come to different conferences and programs, 6-week program here, that, and there, and we're talking about $5,000-$6,000 before transportation, and those programs fill up. Somebody is paying and going, and I'm just thinking of all the opportunities that our kids don't even get, what they get exposed to. That can give them a sense of what is out there. So when I was talking to the highly educated, accomplished staff of Corteva, I said, one of the biggest gifts you guys can give is to go into our community and even let children know that these kind of career options exist, because I didn't even know. I mean, I was truly blown away. I was talking to a sister who's originally from Haiti. She has a master's and a PhD and some other masters from Purdue University. And, the language they're speaking and what they're able to do with these in their research and design with these seeds and working on this pest control and this. And I was like, yo, too smart for me, but growing up, even though my father was a scientist, I didn't even know that those pathways exist. I mean, I should have, but seeing people who look like you, men and women, I mean, Joel, who was playing the saxophone, he got long locks and everything. I mean, these are Black folk who are, they're not passing for anything but Black. I mean, most of the sisters that I saw actually had natural hairstyles. It's like, our children need to see you. Even if you just say, one lunch break every month, I'm going to go in and have lunch with these kids. It will make a huge difference. And just tell them what you're working on, because they don't even know. So yeah, we have a lot of work to do, Black folk and everybody else, because actually this is a humanity thing. If you care about people, invest in people. Whatever your color, hue, whatever it is. I work with kids from all backgrounds, although I definitely do pay closer attention because there's such a need to kids who come from my community. But I will not turn away any kid. When we worked at South Belton Middle School, we had quite a few Black girls there, but the majority of the girls we were serving through It Girls were Hispanic and white, because they had needs too. And so if you are human, get in the fight for humanity. Help these DACA kids. They were born in this country. They had no control over anything. They are working, contributing, paying taxes. And to just say because of where their parents came from or whatever, it's okay to just strip them of their humanity, throw them out. I mean, come on, y'all. Where is our heart? I guess would be the question. Well, thank you, gentlemen, because we could keep talking for another 3 hours, but I'm quite frankly going back to sleep.
Yeah, got you. Yeah, definitely. I was about ready to say something, but I won't be hush on it.
You can say it, you're with friends, but no. I'm going to check on the kids, make sure they're good, and I'm going to go in and at least get 2 hours, because I have 5 meetings today, but I'm going to go in and rejuvenate for a second. And Adesoji, I know you have
I have a podcast in live. It goes live in 2 hours. 2 hours 4 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's let you go too. But thank you all.